What up, guys? Welcome to the podcast today. Today we have a big meathead wrestler who is getting good at jiu-jitsu named Ian. He had some matches up against one of my guys, Brandon, and we had a chance to chat with him, or I had a chance to chat with him at the Nogi Worlds this past year. And super fun guy, and he went out there and killed it. He took second in his division, and then he ended up winning the open weight, if I'm correct, and looked good in the process, right? Like, good wrestling, everything else. Was pushing the pace, the whole deal. And he's also he's competing in the adult division, and he's 33, which I, always kind of find a little impressive because it's tough. It's tough, getting in there and competing with the young fellas, because no matter what, your engine doesn't keep, you can get strong, you can get more technical, but as you get older, your engine just gets a little bit less, powerful, so to speak, right? Like your heart just can't pump as hard as you get older, just is what it is. And so again, he's out there doing that. And I wanted to have him on the podcast because fun guy to chat with. And I like watching his jiu-jitsu, and he's a meathead. So I figured we could chat about that too, which we do on the podcast.
Yeah.
But again, guys, it's a fun podcast. So if you're interested in wrestling, if you're interested in a little bit of lifting, and you're interested in, hearing about a guy getting into jiu-jitsu who, is competing in the ADCC and stuff like that, then you'll enjoy the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Grapple Science. If you guys haven't checked them out yet, Grapple Science is a newer company. They were founded by some of the guys that were associated with the company Killcliff back in the day. And they came up with a supplement called Cognition. And so their idea was they wanted to create a energy boosting supplement, right? They wanted to give people like a boost of energy, and focus, but they didn't want to create it based on stimulants, right? So most of the time when you get any sort of a supplement that says energy on it, it almost always has, caffeine and stimulants in it, which, one, if you're sensitive to that stuff, it's not good. But also, two, if you go into training and you're hopped up on stimulants and you're getting ready to do a really cardiovascular intensive exercise, usually it's not the best. From what I've experienced, it's not the best thing to do. In fact, I've seen many of my students who, went to a supplement store and some guy tells them, hey, take this energy supplement. And then they take an energy supplement, which is filled with caffeine, and then they're just dying in the gym because they're just, if you think about what it does, is essentially think about a car. When you take one of these big pre-workout supplements or whatever, you're essentially raising your idle. Blood pressure sitting a little higher, or resting heart rate goes up. All these different functions that happen are now just idling a little higher. And so then as soon as you get going, you get to your red line much quicker. Whereas, again, if you're not in that state, you can probably have a little bit more gas in your tank. And so anyway, with that said, they formulated a supplement to help give you a little bit more focus and help you have a little bit more energy for training. And honestly, I've been using it, and I find that it's useful on those days where if I've got to go back and forth between training and work, where I've got to be writing and be creative and things like that, I find it actually really useful. And so I tend to take it on those days. I don't take the hard training days. I can do those all days, but where I have a hard training session and I know I'm going to have to sit down and do some work at the desk, I like having the supplement. I like taking it. And again, if you guys want to try it out, you can check it out at grapplescience.com. And when you go to their website, use the promo code Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order, and you'll get it's like a month's supply. And it comes in individual packets, so you can easily just throw it in your bag and go. I would suggest if you do try the supplement, try it with a half dose just to see, or a quarter dose, just to see what it's like first, and then you can kind of bump it up from there. Not that it's going to make much of an effect because it doesn't have any stimulants, but I'm always kind of a big fan to see if I can get more with less in the beginning. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. You guys who longtime listeners, you guys know that we've been using Charlotte's Web for a long time. Charlotte's Web is becoming a company that it used to just be purely CBD. That was their big claim to fame. If you're familiar with the story, they formulated CBD to support this young girl named Charlotte, right? And that was kind of the reason they started making the supplements that they did. Well, they're now starting to incorporate a lot of other elements of different cannabinoids like CBN, which can be really useful for sleep, but also even functional mushrooms like cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi. And they're also including a lot of other supplements that have different dietary supplements to help you be more focused or recover fast, or whatever it might be, whatever the effect they want to help you with. And so if you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website. They have a ton of different products, lots of stuff. And again, they have different formulations for different functions, whether you're trying to be more energetic, rest a little bit more, whatever it is. Find something you like, and if there's something you want to try and you want to save some money on it, use the promo code Chewjitsu30 to save 30% off the order on their website at charlottesweb.com. Also, guys, epicrollbjj.com is one of our sponsors, Epic Roll. They are a company that makes pretty much anything you might want jiu-jitsu related, right? Everything from rash guards, hoodies, shorts, gis, doesn't matter. Anything jiu-jitsu related, they have it. Also, just letting you guys know, I'm going to be doing a new batch of rash guards coming up soon. I'm currently having the designer retool the design that I had made, because technically it's not IBJJF legal because there's a little bit of gray. Stupid. I know. But so I'm going to have them, retooled a little bit. We're sort of ironing that out. Once that's done, I'll release them, and they'll be made by Epic Roll. I like the quality of the stuff they put together, and I think they do a good job. So we'll be putting that together soon. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm estimating a release sometime towards the middle or end of February. So again, that should be a fun thing, and I'm excited to share those with you guys. I haven't done a new rash guard release in a long time, and I'm really excited about the designs we have coming up. So be tuned into that. But that said, if you guys want to check out any of their stuff, check them out at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code to save 20% is Chewjitsu20. Also, if you guys want to support the podcast and help us continue to go and do new and better stuff with the podcast, then check us out at patreon.com. And then the little slash there is the Chewjitsu Podcast, THE, the Chewjitsu Podcast. And we have a bunch of different perks for members when they join that you can check out. But again, it helps support the podcast that you're listening to. And the membership that we have there is for a very inexpensive price if you're interested. So again, that's at www.patreon.com/the Chewjitsu Podcast. And last but not least, guys, if you would like to get an ebook that will help you improve in jiu-jitsu faster, I say that with no hyperbole, then check out my email list, which is, I call it the Chew Crew, or sometimes I'll refer to it as the Roll Longer newsletter, since I'm trying to help people train a little bit longer, keep pushing it, whatever it might be, whether that's a mental struggle or maybe they're getting a little bit older and they need tips related to being an older grappler. It's at my website, chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you join up, the ebook is all about having about different ways you can create focus for your training. And the reason why I say improve faster is, like, I just finished a program, a month-long coaching program with people I call the Executors Challenge. We do it in January. And one of the things that I found is a lot of people don't have focus in their training. They just kind of show up and go with the flow. And one of the things is that when you talk to some of the best guys out there, one of the things that they have is they have focus with their training. Even if they're not coaching the class, during the open rolls that they do, they are focused on something very specific they're trying to improve upon. And so if you start doing that, you can get much better, much faster. You can make the most of your training sessions if you're not able to be in the gym every single day for 4 hours, like some young people. And again, I'll give you 12 different strategies that you can use to implement in your open rolls to do that. And again, that's at my website, chewjitsu.net/join. So guys, with that said, let's talk to Ian on the podcast. I was telling Eugene, I met you, talked to you a little bit more at the Worlds, and I was like, that just seems like it'd be a fun dude to chat with. You know what I mean? You had like a good spirit about you when you were out there. So like, that seems like it'd be a fun guy to chat with. So generally I like having people on the show that either I like watching them compete, like enroll, or, they seem like they'd be fun to chat with. You kind of check both of those boxes. So it'll be fun.
I appreciate it. And we have history with Brandon. And it started off pretty aggressive.
Oh yeah, bro. Well, but that's, I don't know. It's like, during matches and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure you think about this the same way. I don't know if it's maybe I think it's how all competitors get when we're out there on the mats. Like, we're not friends. We're there trying to take each other's head off. Like, I'm going to collar tie you and I want to like basically club you over the neck and I'm going to rough you up. It's a scrap. And then as soon as it's done, it's all good.
We're good.
But during that moment, it's like we're enemies. It is what it is.
Like within the rule set, which that's like that's it. Yeah, the cross faces were on the line of
what, in the first match?
Yeah,
it was, and I was hollering, I was like screaming and stuff. But it is what it is, man. Like, again, we all push the boundaries. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah. I know I've been out there before where me and a guy are basically just clubbing each other back and forth. And it's like, are we even going for takedowns? Or are we just like, the guy clubbed me, so I'm just going to club him harder. And we're just going to go back and forth and basically hit each other, Yeah.
It gets scrappy.
So getting into something like that kind of exchange initially, what's your mindset getting into it? What are you trying to establish specifically, or it could be multiple things. You know, you're trying to establish things or throw somebody off their game. What are you trying to do by, being overly aggressive, or just kind of towing that line?
My mindset going into that is, one, you're competing, you're in kill mode. And then I'm trying to get something opened up, because at that time I still don't. I didn't have a lot of options to I can't get hooks in well. I never rode legs in high school. So I'm like, I got to get him up. I got to get him moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was the first thing that came to mind. Cross face really hard, not concussive. I feel like the moment a hand or any body part pulls back and then impacts, all right, that's illegal. You're no longer doing jiu-jitsu. But if you start with the connection and then drive it across, it's still legal.
Sure.
But it's brutal. And again, when you don't have a ton of technique and finesse, you go with what you got.
I mean, and it just is what it is, dude. I mean, again, anybody who's competed, especially I feel like the higher the level that you get into, I mean, the more you're just you find the rules and you just kind of skirt those rules.
Yeah. I've learned a lot actually at the high level, being at ADCC, being at CJI. I mean, you've seen who I train with. Some of the people are the best.
A lot of good guys.
And aggression. And Keenan talks about this. He's sometimes things are matched up so well, and whoever's going to be more aggressive might get the lead. Brandon was obviously really used to that. I mean, his high school or his college career is unreal. So he's totally used to that. But sometimes aggression gives you an advantage.
100%. I mean, I think a lot of times there's a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners who get into it who aren't they're not used to competition, and they go out there, and a lot of times they're very slow to start. Whereas if you are used to competing, you tend to go out there and as soon as I almost said the buzzer or the whistle, but as soon as you're going, you're told to fight. You're aggressive and you're going after the person. And a lot of times you can take control of the match very early if that person is not ready for it. I've had that happen tons of times where I've gone into a match, I'm sure you have too, where you basically shoot a takedown really quick. And this person's ready. They're ready to warm up for about a minute or two. And then you're ready to go. Yeah. And you can take control of the match right out of the gate like that.
Yeah. And that comes from wrestling. I feel like it was such an advantage. Did you wrestle in high school?
I wrestled in high school. I was a very mediocre wrestler. But I was always, once I got into jiu-jitsu, we were always surrounded by college wrestlers. There was always good wrestlers in the gym. And so I probably learned way more wrestling in jiu-jitsu than I did back in wrestling, because we always had so many good guys on the mats.
Yeah. I feel like that experience of just getting in 30 matches, 50 matches in a year.
Yeah.
You realize there's a process. I'm not nervous. You can just manage that. And then you realize that's a skill set. I think Sloan talked about that. I watched your guys' podcast, but he's talked about that before. Competing is a skill set, not just the skill set itself.
Yeah, that's a big thing for us jiu-jitsu people. I've never wrestled really on any, when I started jiu-jitsu, I was very nervous. I mean, competition's always nerve-wracking for me. And I'm always amazed at how some people seem very calm. They may not be, but they seem very calm. Do you think, just obviously the experience is a huge advantage there, but what else do you think is helpful in the competition sense when you're trying to get prepped for a tournament or a big match? What are you trying to do to get yourself just in your best frame of mind mentally, and then also physically? How are you getting yourself prepped?
So I'm unique. I have, I'll answer that with I feel like your motivation as to why you're out there and carrying that is big. So for me, I'm 33. I just started jiu-jitsu, which again, that's big air quotes.
Did you just have a birthday?
No, November. No.
Okay.
No, November last year, 33.
Okay.
I started 18, 19 months ago. I was doing corporate stuff. I was in sales. I just always trained. I wrestled throughout high school. I did judo. I wrestled in college, never accomplished anything. I got hurt, snapped my pec off. And then I was done. I was I quit. I didn't want to compete for this team anymore. And I just always loved to compete and grapple. And I started training MMA, and I wrestled with Jesse Taylor, who is the OG of my jiu-jitsu career. He's the one who would take me to open mats. And I would get him ready for fights when he was doing, fights with a wrestler. And I like always wanted to do more. And then again, 19 months ago, I started doing jiu-jitsu. And so I'm like ecstatic. Every practice, every match, I'm like so grateful that I get to do this. So I get really I get super excited when competitions are coming up. I'm like, I get to do this. I'm 33. Like, I cannot believe I'm doing jiu-jitsu now. My life took a complete U-turn. I was doing corporate and then I would kind of roll for fun. And now I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make jiu-jitsu work. And so I'm like grateful. Like every match, I'm grateful. Like not exaggerating, just super excited. And then I'll bring back in the aggression, which I'm Irish. I have like a bare knuckle boxers in my family that like my mom's really aggressive. I do have that aggression, but like it was always controlled rage. And I did a lot of sports psychology growing up. And so like I've been able to manage the nerves. Now I got to like manage the excitement because I get like really excited to compete. I can't wait to get out there. I like don't warm up really because I'm like, I'm good. I'm good.
So with jiu-jitsu, why did you start doing it? So obviously, you had you kind of had this constant itch to grapple, but what made you like, what was the moment where you're like, man, I really want to do this. I want to dive into this stuff, start training more regularly. And
there was a really specific moment. So it was ADCC Tijuana, TJ. I had been rolling at 10th Planet Poway, just coming in having fun. And my coaches, Kevin and Josh, were like, you have to like compete. You're a big wrestler. We like having you in the room. We need good wrestling for ADCC. And I had seen some of it on TV, like, Gao Bao and people like that. And I'm like, I'm going to give that ADCC Open thing a chance. And it was like a really fun experience. We walked over the border, parked the car, walked over. I met Jake Watson on the way over, like trying to get taxis. I can't speak Spanish. It was like a really fun experience. And then my first match, I like get a choke without putting hooks in somehow, get like a rear naked choke. And I did advanced. My coaches were like, you should maybe do intermediate. I'm like, no. If I'm doing this, I'm going to do it. Okay. And my second match was John Hansen. Chokes
a tough one.
It's a tough one. Yeah. So I'm trying to wrestle him. He pulls guard. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in this guard. And he wrestles up. And I'm like, oh, shoot, these guys can wrestle. And he gets a rear naked choke, makes me tap. And it was like that moment when he beat me, I was like, oh, I'm like getting really, I'm going to be hooked on this. And then I'm out of my division. I entered Absolute, had like 4 or 5 more matches. I get Dory in the finals. He chokes me. I take second. And like, as we're walking over the border, I'm like, I'm going to make that work. Like I'm all in. I was like ready to quit my job on the like calling my boss at like 2 a.m. on the way over. I was like, I'm done. I'm doing jiu-jitsu. That's it. I didn't know how fun it would be. And I lost. So I have a chip on my shoulder. That was the moment. That's when I went all in. It was losing and realizing how good people are. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. I'm not getting punched in the face. Like this was the funnest thing ever. I'm not very good at it. I was all in at that tournament.
What did you focus on when you went back? So you said, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. Like, how did you start to implement like your wrestling and then the submissions and all that stuff? How do you start to blend that? That's always a fun question for wrestlers I like to ask, like, because some guys just want to wrestle and do a little jiu-jitsu. Someone like Brandon was very much played the game, start playing off his back and doing legs. And he really like just, took his lumps a little bit and he's incredible. He's so good now. And but like that's hard sometimes because you have the skill set that you're very good and effective in. And so you have to kind of play the game because that you're getting choked and that's not part of wrestling essentially. So what did you go back and start doing?
I'm lucky enough to be in San Diego where like the next week I went to Open Mat, was rolling with Keenan. I didn't know who Keenan was. And I'm getting all twisted up. He's pulling guard. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And I've been choked by like Gio and Richie like 10 years ago with rubber guard. And I always like remembered that. I was like, these guys like can choke me with like their foot. And so having that like realization that there's a whole nother world of like combat and just within grappling that I have no clue how to do it. And like realizing that, going, okay, I really want to get good at that. I know where to start, but I'll just try to. I'm gonna sit back and you grab my leg, I'll pull guard and let's figure it out. And so that's what I would do. I don't like having a big gap in my game. Like that kind of like would terrify me to like walk around competing in a sport where I have a huge deficit. And so I like have been trying to jump into it. Like you won't see me doing a competition, because I do know
it's not your A game.
It's not my A game, but in practice, like I'm mainly, unless I'm trying to win, it's like death match, I will usually pull guard. If we're like flow rolling, I'm sitting on my butt. I enjoy it. I really like that wrestlers don't like it. Me being a wrestler myself, I'm like, hey man, you got to beat it then, or get better and beat them at their own game. Like that should be the goal for every wrestler. How
and I don't
see that be, Yeah.
When you started playing off your back, did you have the same experience that I did, which was as I got better at playing from guard, my guard passing got better because I knew what people were doing from the bottom. It wasn't such a mystery to me, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I to this day, I leave my heels pretty exposed, but I'm tightening that up. I've learned to pass much better from playing guard. Yeah, for sure.
What's been the most difficult idea or concept or technique to grasp? What's something that's been very challenging?
Pummeling with my legs. Yeah, pummeling with my legs. I've just probably in the last couple of months started grasping that concept. If you watch like PJ, the way PJ can like pass a guard and he's using his legs and stapling thing, like that's been the hardest. I'm like, you can use your leg just like an arm. So definitely that. Really foreign. There's like nothing in wrestling that's like that.
What did you dislike about the corporate life? So obviously, there's some of us that some people take to it and they don't mind it at all, right? But then there's some of us, myself included, where you get into a corporate environment and I don't know, for me it felt stuffy, I felt cramped, I felt people don't say what they actually think. You know what I mean? Like you can't really talk to people like regular humans. You got to use corporate speak. What was your deal with the corporate world?
I'm like half and half on it. So to that point of like not like there's like your job and then there's like a game being played, as you know, top of that, like trying to climb the ladder. I looked at it like Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones. You can't punch people, but like you can like set people up. I like enjoyed that aspect to it, like game theory kind of stuff. It's like it doesn't feel great. It's kind of scary playing that corporate game. And you realize like, oh, every single person is doing this. Like this is crazy. It's like a jiu-jitsu match. Like people set traps, but it's with emails and they try to make someone look bad and take credit for something they didn't do. Or it was my experience in corporate was wild. I did med device sales, which when you think of corporate, you think like stockbrokers, but like that was a really snaky game. And I was in finance as well. I worked for UBS cold calling, which I enjoyed. I do enjoy like picking up the phone, talking to people or talking to people face to face, especially if I can be of help. But when it's things that are not of help, that's where I was disliking it. And I was in med device. So my experience was 15-hour days at a hospital, like always on call. The money was good. And then COVID. And then when COVID hit, I feel like so many people, like the whole world was like, oh, like things can get shooken up really fast. Like everything is not as stable as we thought.
It's an illusion.
Yeah, and I feel like I should have realized that before, but that really made me like face it. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to rely on someone else to like for my income. I need to do something that I love and just try to make that work and rely on myself.
Sure. Yeah. If you don't have to write the paycheck, it gives you this illusion of security because you don't have to look at the numbers, right? So, because if you work for yourself, then you're looking at the numbers and the pressure's on. If you're, having your paycheck written for you, then you get the sort of the turn your brain off and you get the illusion of security because like everything's going fine. But like you said, something like COVID happens or, you're old enough to remember like 2008 when everything just fell apart. Like lots of people lost their shirts, like in an instant. And it's just like that, and you can never rely on anything. It's all just any sort of security that we think we enjoy is an illusion, right? And then you got AI coming along the way, and who knows where that goes in the next 10 years and how many jobs it, gets rid of. So,
yeah, I totally agree. I do have friends. I hate when you hear like Joe Rogan be like, God, I could never do it. I'm like, no, people enjoy it. Like I have friends that are in it and they love the corporate game, and they approach it like we approach jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Like, I'm going to get up and win today. And, they play the game, and my hat goes off to them.
Everybody's got their thing, man. I mean, because people don't like what we do. I mean, people come in all the time and they're like, this isn't for me. Right. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd rather make a bunch of money in golf. And I'm like, dude, by all means, please do. I don't golf, but money would be cool.
Yeah. So what was the process? Like, all right, you have this income that now you have to find a new source of income, and you have to do it essentially grappling or doing some type of thing associated with grappling. So what was your process? I mean, I don't know if you're married or not, if you have a significant other or partner or whoever, family, kids, that kind of thing. Like, that's like, you got to support people too, you got to, do your part. So like going back and having, hey, I want to quit my job and do this jiu-jitsu or grappling thing. How did that come about? And what was the process? Yeah. So I probably did it in a way that is like super risky and would not recommend. I have 2 kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 18-month-old. It's funny that ADCC TJ, it was like 10 days before my son's due date. And I was like, I'll be right back. Just don't go into labor yet with my wife. We're married here. I'm in the garage, and, she works. And what I had done is, like, during COVID, I had gotten a job, but my job got really like put on hold because I was going into hospitals. So it shut down. So I got a second job. I did that. I got a third job. I did that. And I got a 4th job. And I only maintained that for like a month. And then I had to drop a job. But I knew I was going to make the jump. And I was working from home. Like, had like 5 computers on my desk. Remember, like overworking was what people call it when they have multiple jobs. Okay. And so 2 years, I grinded like nothing. Just because this was before jiu-jitsu came in to play. I just knew how unstable things were. I need to be able to have some income from multiple sources. And, if companies are going to look out for me, I'm going to look out for myself. So I worked like 3 jobs, and then 2 jobs, I got fired from one for, cuts came. And then I did that for like 24 months. And that gave me a bit of cushion to support myself for a while without working. And then eventually dropped everything. And I have a great family. My wife works, and I just had the opportunity to roll the dice. And so making the jiu-jitsu thing pay, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be a professional grappler or coach, but I'm going to be opening a wrestling gym now. I finally I ran out of money, a couple of months ago. I've been eating, top ramen here, but I'm opening a wrestling gym, doing the permitting now here in San Diego. So
cool.
I'm really excited for that. I can't wait to get it up and going.
And so you're going to do the wrestling gym. That's going to be are you working with like some young kids and stuff like that? Or what's the age groups?
Yeah. So it's going to be the wrestling dads that watch their kids wrestle and go, gosh, I wish I could get back in there. Cause I'm seeing that a lot.
Yeah.
It'll also be for jiu-jitsu guys.
Sure.
It's not going to be a jiu-jitsu gym. It will be wrestling and strength and conditioning. I'll have a few things that will bring jiu-jitsu people into train, which will be a pit wall. I'm going to put a pit wall in.
Okay.
And I'll just focus on what my skill set is, which is wrestling, like old school, straightforward American wrestling, and teach that with a little bit of MMA, just because people like to hit a bag, and just kind of design a takedown focused gym that is not jiu-jitsu, just takedown, grappling, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Get them in there.
Yeah.
It's totally different. There's no wrestling gyms that are private really in the United States. It's usually with a school. So I also coach at Poway High, volunteer, and I could bring jiu-jitsu guys in to train to get their wrestling, but you really need a gym outside of a school to focus on it.
Well, so that also gives the opportunities. What's that?
You have a gym.
Yeah.
Do you have 2 in your area?
Just one gym right now.
Yeah. And it's been going well. You love it.
I do.
Stressful? Yeah.
I mean, stress is relative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's really not that bad at all. I mean, there's things we all have to do that we don't like. Like,
Yeah.
you know, anybody that says, "Oh, you get to," I heard someone say that, like, if you know, people have all said this, is very cliche. They'll say, if you do what you love, you don't work a day. And I'm like, that's absolute bullshit. I'm like, you work, but there's nothing wrong with work, because like work's, I don't know. I find work, like, especially if it's something that's meaningful to you, it's a beautiful thing. It's not something to be frowned upon. Like, if you find something that you enjoy doing, then it's good to have that as work. And it's difficult and it's strenuous and it's exhausting sometimes. But, you know, when you see people making positive changes in their life, or, you know, you're able to help people realize their own dreams and stuff like that, it's super freaking cool. So it's all right, you know?
Yeah.
So that's that. But it's good.
Yeah.
I think we have a good support system at the gym, like a lot of like good coaches. People have been there for a long time. And I think I think obviously Chewy kind of runs the show, you know, he's like the head coach, but then we've got a lot of us that like try to support and do stuff to where it really, not everything's on his shoulders, and we don't want that. And we also want to take some ownership. Like I want to coach and have like my own class and have, so like, I think Chewy used to kind of run the whole thing by himself and be on the mats like sun up to sundown. But I think over time, like you get people around you, I think and that can really help that gym grow and ease off some things. I'm obviously running a gym and I don't know a whole extent of it. Chewy probably can share some of that. And there's always fun stuff and challenging things that come along, but yeah.
You got good coaches. Yeah. So that would be the goal.
Well, they're all like homegrown, you know?
That's cool.
Yeah. Now, with your wrestling, when did you start wrestling? Were you like wrestling as like a kid, or was it high school? What was it?
A little bit. I was 6 years old. My parents were like, what are we gonna do with this kid? You know, ADD, all that, you know, high energy. And they put me right in. I loved it. Took right to it.
So why did they think that you were ADD? Were you actually ADD, or were you just hyper?
I don't know. God bless my mom. She was like, you know, who cares what you are? You have high energy. You're not, you know, what a doctor says or anything. We're going to get you in. My parents are very athletic, well, I don't know, athletic, but healthy. Like she runs. That's how she manages her stress. She runs every day. She's 65 and runs like 5 miles a day. She's crazy.
Nice.
And so they like understood like, oh, put him in something to manage that energy, have an outlet. So they put me in, and everything was like luck. Poway, this incredible wrestling program. It's a whole culture here in this town. And so like I took to it, and, you know, my friend groups were all based in wrestling for the first 18 years of my life. So yeah, I loved it.
Well, that's cool. It's interesting to see. Like I'm reading this book right now. It's called Of Boys and Men. Have you guys heard of it?
Mm-mm.
So it's a guy. He basically is going into this sort of like the crisis of boys that's going on, kind of like a worldwide thing. From, you know, like boys not graduating like school on par. Like it's starting to distort, you know, skew heavily towards women, and like, you know, in a really surprising way. And he starts talking about different factors that are leading to certain issues with boys. And like one of the things that he was talking about, I guess, with the brain development of boys and girls in adolescence, for instance, is that like I guess part of the executive function in the brain, right, the neocortex, it doesn't fully form in boys and men as fast as it does in women. Like women tend to become a little bit more mature faster, whereas boys, like when our testosterone's starting to kick in and we're starting to go through puberty, our like neocortex is not where it needs to be. The cerebellum's not formed. And so you essentially have your foot on the gas pedal, but you don't have a brake. And so they just start, you know, they start going nuts. And so it's been an interesting book. I'm about halfway through it right now, but you know, when you talk about hyperactivity in boys, it's like, that's just a lot of times just how we are, right? And like getting us to sit down for 8 hours or 6 hours, whatever it is in school, like it's just not conducive to, you know, young boys that want to get up and do something and be active and be physical.
Yeah. For boys, I'm gonna have to look into that. Boys to Men, it's called.
It's called Of Boys and Men. It's let me see here. I'll see the author real quick. The
that makes perfect sense what you said.
Sure does. Yeah. Yeah.
All
The guy's
gas.
name is Richard Reeves. It's of Boys and Men. So, you know, the dude, I guess he studied he was always looking into differences between like pay gaps and stuff, women and men, things like that. And then he became alarmed when he looked at the differences between boys and men, both in schools, work, and everything else, and what's changing in the society. And he sort of lines out some ideas as to what he thinks could help solve the problem. You know, and things like that, which he has a couple different ideas, but it's an interesting book.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to take a read. Just to mention, like having a mentor or a leader or someone to help guide.
You know, I'm not there yet, but I think that's pretty damn important, right? Like finding mentors. Did you have some mentors growing up?
Yeah, my high school coach, Wayne Brandstetter, who is retired now, but he coached for, God, I feel like he coached 50 years. It might have been 46 or 47, but he's like an old school Montana cowboy who he fishes and he wrestled. And he was always talking about that. Like, wrestling is wrestling, but like I'm here to develop young men or young boys and then make them into men for like society. Like he preached that like since I was like, you know, preteen. So that like has always been in my head. Now, did I listen? Absolutely not. When I was in high school, I was a maniac and one ear and out the other. But now that I'm a father, like everything he said to me like makes perfect sense. It just hit me 20 years later, you know.
It sticks in a little bit later. What was it about him that like stuck with you? Because I had similar experience with my high school wrestling coach where he sort of it was the same thing. Like he was all about wrestling and everything else, but at the same time, he held us to a different standard, and everything from our grades had to be higher than what the requirement was for school. To, you know, like I remember I went to grew up in like some rough areas when I was younger, and like, you know, kids would come hanging with their pants off their butt and stuff like that, and he'd be all over them. So, you know, he was trying to get us prepared for life after high school and make us into good dudes. Yeah. What was it about your coach that you remember or that stuck with you so much?
It was like that. It was someone who was speaking to us and would talk about, he would relate to us. Like, number one, he was good at wrestling, and he would like, hey, that guy can kick our butts. And he had a very like competitiveness to him, which I feel like a lot of young boys, high energy, can relate to. And he would talk about like, I know, like smoking that dope, it ain't gonna do no good for you. Like always calling it dope, smoking that dope. And he would just be like, there was like alcoholics on the team. He would pick them up and take them to AA. Like he cared. And so if there was ever kids that didn't have that, he would be there. Like that dude is like heart of gold, absolute legend. And he would just have like sayings like that was his mentality and that was his personality. But you have sayings like, it's a lot better to, you know, go to bed at night, not having to look over your shoulder, something like that. You know?
Yeah.
God, that makes sense. I'm still going to be out on the weekend being crazy, but that one has always stuck with me, not having to look over your shoulder. It's like a lot easier to sleep, things like that. And he would just like really cared. He would do anything to help kids. He would be competitive. Like if you weren't a great wrestler and you lost your spot on the team, you know, okay, he would want to win first, but like he would be there for every kid. He'd be like, just stick it out, just be here, you know, support your team. Like all the things you want to hear from like a good leader, he would say. And he'd take you fishing too. So it was like, if you got to go fishing with Wayne, it would be like, oh man, that was crazy. He's a good dude. I see him to this day when I go in and volunteer coach. He is in his 70s. He's got like 2 hip replacements, shoulder replacement, like everything, and his grandson is wrestling. And so I'm like constantly getting these full circle moments.
That's cool.
I come in with my son and I'm like, this is Coach Brandstetter. It's like, I have that constantly.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like when, like you study like old cultures, like in different societies, you would like, especially some of these like old tribal societies, they would typically with like the young men, there would be a period of time when they reached a certain age where they would have to go off with like other men and they would have to go do something very difficult together. And it would be this sort of ritual or this process of instilling to the men, like in our society and our culture, this is what it means to be a man. And here's what you have to do. Here's the values and virtues you have to uphold. And here are the difficult things that you're going to have to accomplish. and I feel like you said, having mentors and older male figures and elders to kind of guide you through that process. We don't have a structured way of doing that in society. And so when you come across like an older dude who like takes you under his wing and sort of gives you a perspective on life, like here's a way of doing things and here's a way to better yourself. I think it's like life-changing for young boys and young teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think probably our only outlet for that, or only way to get that, is probably sports. Like there really isn't anything else I can think of. Really, boys.
Well, where else do old guys hang out with young guys and it's completely okay, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like most of them, it's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably sports, maybe Boy Scouts or something. Yeah.
But even then, but then you think about it, like, but doing something hard, right? Like, because there's a bond that you make through wrestling, right? Because, let's say if you're a young guy and, you're, especially if you got a coach who can still like move around a little bit. If your coach comes in there and he like whoops your ass a little bit, like, it's just, there's something to it, right? Like you have it's a different level, or even if you can't, you know what your coach has accomplished. There's a certain level of respect that comes from, the guys that have been on the mats, the guys that have fought or whatever else, and, they're a little bit older and they're telling you to do something. You have a little bit more respect from it, from say just a random older guy that you've come across, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you've been in the trenches together. He knows what you're going through. Definitely. Yeah. That's what Sammy Henson I wrestled for him in Oklahoma, and he would say things like, I'm never going to ask you something I didn't do myself. Okay. All right. I'm in, if you're asking me to do something and you've done it. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Leading from the front is really important. I mean, it builds confidence and builds like, people trust you because you've done it, been there, done it, push yourself through it. So, tell me a little bit about your like high school career. How did that turn out as far as wrestling goes? And then your transition, you mentioned you wrestled Division I. So tell us about kind of how all that happened and your experience maybe in high school wrestling, and then also in college, and how that maybe shaped you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So here in Poway, wrestling the youth program. And then I did 3 years of judo right before high school, and then a little bit in high school. There was a really good judo program here, Judo America. The coach, Gerald LaFawn, his daughter, 2-time Olympian, like really high level, just lucked out. My parents were early on cross training. So my mom was like, do wrestling, we should cross train judo. So I had never heard of judo before. So putting on this outfit, what is this? So I got good judo experience. I was able to travel because this was judo when you could shoot a double leg. You let me shoot a double leg, you have pants on, I'm getting that double leg. And so I would win. Like I was winning from the start. I've been wrestling for a couple of years then. And then I started judo. And so I got to travel to Japan. I like crushed it in judo. Loved it. My daughter's doing judo now. I'm a huge fan of the sport. And so I did that. Then I entered high school. Poway is a crazy tough program. So like I'm not making the team as a freshman. Barely make the team as a sophomore. And then I don't really do well in anything as a sophomore. I think I placed at Fargo, which is the Nationals.
Yeah.
I was one of the few guys, again, Poway kind of old school. It was usually folk style wrestling. Now that's changed. Now they travel all over and compete in freestyle. But I did freestyle. I All-Americaned. And then a junior, I got third at the state. And then I got a concussion at Fargo. And then as a senior, I ended up winning state. I was trying to go to Cal Poly originally, and then ended up at Oklahoma. Again, not good grades. I was a really wild kid, and just was not quite focused. I was pretty young when I graduated. I started college at 17. I was not fully baked. The frontal cortex was not there. So I made a lot of mistakes. But I had good supportive parents. My mom and dad are amazing and really put up with a lot for me. And I got to Oklahoma, continued to be wild. Went to Cal State Fullerton after that, just had to leave Oklahoma. I was just drinking and getting in trouble every day. And Fullerton dropped their program. I got a red shirt. When I was at Oklahoma, I went like 9-5. Like I'm athletic. I'm a competitor. you know, even if I'm being wild, I try and bring, you know, some of that wildness into the match, and that does help. And so I had some success. I got my butt kicked though at Oklahoma. I'll say this: I didn't get a takedown for like the first like 4 weeks, and I'd call home crying and be like, "I can't do this anymore." She's like, "It's okay, honey, come home, come home." I'm like, "God dang it, now I have to stay." Like, I can't back out now if my mom is babying me like that. And so they're very like, they would just let me choose my own path. I was never pushed. In fact, my mom didn't want me to really wrestle. She would say, "You're gonna be a beast of burden. You're gonna get hurt." You know, like, doesn't want your baby boy to get hurt. So I ended up at Cal Poly eventually, which is where I wanted to go. And I ended up snapping my pec my first match at heavyweight. Just was holding onto a cradle, ripping it as hard as I could, and blew my own pec off. And that was it. That was my D1 experience. You know, I will put D1 in my bio for sure. I don't know how much weight it holds. I had some matches at Oklahoma. I redshirt my second year. I blow my pec off my first match at Cal Poly, and that was it. My grappling experience was Jesse Taylor. It would be Jesse calling me, going, "Hey, I got a fight coming up. Can you wrestle?" I'm like, yeah. We'd go into the power wrestling room, get on the mat, and we just trained. We just go live rounds for like an hour. Then he'd start trying to choke me, and never really learned other than him trying to choke me, you know, how to defend a choke. And that was my wrestling and grappling. You know, young, it never really panned out the way I wanted it, which is why I'm competing now. And, you know, I did win a California state title, which is great. But, you know, being that young, I'm sure things could have been different if I was mature and ready. But I'm happy with the way things panned out.
Yeah. So you tore your pec, and, you know, obviously I'm sure you got it. You know, I don't see any like divots, so it looks like you got it reattached and everything. Did you, like, what made you not decide to go back to like wrestling or grappling? Was it just there was no longer any time, or you were just like, screw this, I'm done for now? Like, what was the reason?
That injury was pretty bad. It wasn't like it was like 9-month recovery. Like, I could not. I mean, it pulled bone off when that tendon ripped off. It was pretty gnarly. And so like there was that, and then the coaching, I won't name names, but the coach, I had to get sober when I was 19. You know, I haven't had a drink since I was 19. And so I had left Cal State Fullerton. I was ready to like chase my dreams at Cal Poly. I have this injury. I heal up. I'm ready to go again. Here we go. I got like, you know, 2 or 3 more years of eligibility left. I'm going to try to make a run for a title, like I've always dreamed of. And my coach was just like showing up hungover to practice. And I'm like, God dang it. I didn't really have this like amazing mentor coach like I had in high school. And I was just like, fuck this. Like, I just cannot do this. And I'd be pushing and pushing in practice, and he'd be like, "Hey, just like slow it down." I'm like, dude, like I just came from Oklahoma with Sammy Henson. He would never tell me to slow it down. He would turn it up.
It's college wrestling, man.
Yeah, this is college wrestling. And so I just couldn't do it. I had too much of a disagreement. I was looking at what life would look like without wrestling, which many wrestlers, you know, they get so hyper focused. And I started like taking a step back and going, ooh, you know, what would come after? Let's say I do chase this title and get it. What's after that? So I started working. I started doing my MMA training at the pit up there in SLO, which is really cool. But I started working and had, you know, jobs, and I'd bounce on the weekends and was like a dog trainer. I just started trying new things. Just sort of.
Well, it's like, it's interesting how that works. Like a good coach, I mean, they can do so much with someone, and they can instill a certain amount of passion about an activity because it emanates from them. On the other side, a bad coach can do the exact opposite. They can take something that someone loves and they can just suck the life out of it. And I've experienced that before, and you know, it just sucks when you see it, because then it's like, you know, for instance, if you had a good coach and he was saying, "Hey man, like, let's go," and you were looking at yourself like, "Where do I go after this?" You would be like, "Fuck it, let's just go. I got to stay on this thing for a little bit longer." But when you have a bad coach, then you start looking at it and you're like, well, where am I going with this? It changes the whole perspective of the thing.
Yeah, it was my first time experiencing that. I'm to this day, that's the only bad coach I ever had. I had an amazing coach in high school, amazing coach at Cal State Fullerton, and amazing coach at Oklahoma, amazing coaches now. I had never experienced like a coach that they're like halfway in. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're halfway in on this? Like, you're doing this for a job. Why are we? What's going on? It was so strange. I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we had, gym culture is so important. So like, just the environment, that's just so important to have that. And like we talked about leading from the front, you got to have somebody that's a leader that, displays that culture and that environment that's conducive to, pushing yourself and getting better and improvement. You're just not seeing that. And that's just, has nothing to do with you guys. Of course, that's personal stuff that probably they needed to address.
Yeah. That the Gym Culture podcast was amazing. Absolutely. You guys nailed it. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, dude. So there's, in jiu-jitsu, there's, I don't know about what your thoughts. Me and Brandon were talking about this last night. Like sometimes there's this sort of like overly academicness of jiu-jitsu practitioners, right? Like whereas like a wrestlers, a lot of times it's like, we're going to do this and just go do this, and then the jiu-jitsu guys want to like pontificate over every little thing, and which is not necessarily wrong, right? Like some people learn better that way, and I think there's plenty to really diving into the concepts as to why this thing works and so forth. But with drilling and training, by the way, when I say drilling, I don't mean like so we're clear on this, I don't mean like what learning the technique for the first time and you're like going really slow or whatever. I'm talking about like where you're doing like, drilling in like a wrestling where you're moving through the motions, you're going at a fairly good pace, that sort of thing. When with your training, do you drill or do you just roll? Do you recommend drilling for people, or do you just like tell them to roll and do situational training? Like with training, I like asking this question because people have different answers. What do you sort of recommend, or what has been useful to you?
Yeah. So I am a staunch believer, I hope that's the term, in drilling in the way that wrestlers drill. Throughout like every wrestling program, you have, hey, we're going to drill double legs. All right, this person's going, this person's not. Your setups, and I'm not talking like you said, like one technique where very slowly do this thing, and here we go. It's not live. There's resistance, and a great example would be like J-Flow. You watch J-Flow stuff, like when him and Max are going, he doesn't let you take him down unless like it's a really good. You're in, it's good, it would be solid. And if he was starting live there, you'd probably still get the takedown. And so that kind of resistance, but like coming in with, all right, I'm only shooting single legs, or I'm going to reshoot, or whatever that goal might be in that drill. So I drill, and I'm learning to drill like passing, like a side passing. I was just drilling yesterday. So I drill. You have to have the muscle memory. Like there's just no other way of getting it. And I know, you talk to Keenan will say like, I don't drill. And I'm like, you drill. And he's like, no, drilling. No, it needs to be live. There's a live feedback. Talk about pontification. That guy will go on and on all day. And likes to hear himself talk, but I love him. I have to say that.
Yeah, of course.
I have to make fun of him. He will say, I don't drill. And I'm like, dude, you will ask me, you want to work on something new. You stand there, or I'll stand there. You start working on it slowly, and you go, okay, all right, give me some resistance. We go from like 10%, 30, 50. Okay, now we're going. All right, full resistance. I'm like, you just drilled. You just drilled it's on that move.
Right.
And he doesn't relent. He's like, no, live only. I'm like, okay, well, you're drilling. So drilling's important. And it's a way to get a lot of reps in of whatever technique we know is effective historically. You need to be able to do 1,000 of them. We all know like 10,000 hours to master, whatever craft, but like building that muscle memory. Drill. I absolutely drill. Shadow wrestling to this day, shadow wrestling. If I'm not keeping that up, I'll lose an edge. So I drill, and then I do a lot of live. I do both. You need both.
Yeah. I'm there with you. I'm curious because I've like from doing the videos and stuff, when I bring up the idea of drilling, it's funny how, like, some of the jiu-jitsu guys that are getting out there, especially the younger ones, they'll buy into someone's particular mode of thinking that, oh man, drilling's a waste of time. I'm like, bro, like, boxers hit pads. Boxers hit pads all day. Wrestlers in college programs in the Olympics, they drill. Again, the drilling can take on a certain intensity that jiu-jitsu guys are not necessarily used to. Drilling is not just sort of let me slowly go through the motions, right? There can be a lot of quickness to where it almost gives you, and you can even have people give you a certain look during that drilling, which then takes it into another level. It doesn't have to just be this very slow, passive thing, but I think for a lot of people, drilling is really, really important, especially when you're trying to nail down a technique that you're adding into your game.
Why drilling has a bad rap in jiu-jitsu is beyond me. Like, I don't know where that started. Like, oh, I'm drilling.
Because I think I haven't.
I think it's because it's not fun.
Exactly.
Because
I hate drilling.
Right. But drilling's kind of like lift. You start to love it, right? So, like, for instance, you're a meathead. I'm a meathead, right? Yeah. You start to, like, when you start lifting weights, it burns and it hurts. Yeah. But eventually you start to associate that burn hurt with good because you know what this leads to. Yeah. And so, like, with drilling, it's like, yeah, it's monotonous and it's boring, but man, it's like when you start to feel a movement, all of a sudden start to feel smoother and smoother. And then when you go hit it on people during rolling and you just see it clicking and clicking and you're hitting it more and more, you start to associate every 2 minute, 3 minute round of this drilling or whatever I'm doing. This is like doing one full set. This is good. I think but I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys haven't, a lot of gyms will do like 3 or 5 reps next technique, 3 to 5 reps next technique. They're not used to actually drilling, and their mindset about it is, I think, a bit skewed in that manner.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Eugene? I cut you off. Sorry, buddy.
I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like eating your veggies, sometimes it's good for you, but you don't not always want to do. You want to get to the dessert, which is the rolling, and that's useful. It's like, all right, I've done this technique. I've drilled it. Let me try it. Let me test it against a full on resisting opponent. But yes, like you can go and do some rolling first and figure out, all right, I'm having trouble with this, go back and you can kind of break it down and drill that. So you can use it interchangeably but I think that drilling is it's really important. And the other thing for you guys that are your wrestlers, your cardio, like we can talk about strength conditioning, cardiovascular fitness. I mean, I think like you can drill in a fashion, in a way that's really going to be taxing on your system. And then you're taxing it in a way that you're going to get tired in. Like, I'm going to be in this position, fatiguing. Like this is where I get tired. So can I push through even when I'm tired, or can I make sure I make the proper adjustments to get the technique to work even if I'm fatigued? So I think it has multiple levels. I mean, you can drill in a way where your opponent or your training partner is completely passive and they don't give you the proper look and proper resistance. Everybody hates that kind of drilling, but they give you some resistance and the appropriate resistance. So you can also be a good drilling partner. And that's just as important as the process of drilling.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there'd be a good clip right here. Like Chewy, Brandon drills, right? You guys drill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone I train with that has world titles, Kainan and Ronaldo, like everyone drills. Every high level wrestling program, Penn State, they barely wrestle live, like drilling. The Russians, watch a Russian wrestling practice, they're drilling. Like every high level grappler, wrestling, everything drills. Like to not drill is just insane. Call it whatever you want, but drilling is how every gold medal has ever been won in grappling.
I mean, I think it just goes to the fact that I think sometimes when you say drilling, some jiu-jitsu guys don't really know what drilling is sometimes, right? They equate it to just going really slowly, practicing the technique like 3 or 5 times, and then that's it. Like, that's not drilling though, so then I think it would make a good clip. Here's a good question for you, because I know you're a meathead, you like lifting. What kind of lifting do you like doing? Like, what kind of lifting do you engage upon?
So I used to like super meathead lifting, like squats, deadlifts, bench press. I tore my labrum, so I have been advised by my physical therapist not to be doing the traditional labrum or traditional bench press, right? I still throw in 45s though and bang out some because I can't help it. But so I try to lift twice a week.
Okay.
I try not to waste any time in doing it. Like maybe I'll have a day like today. I'm not rolling today. It's wonderful. Ronaldo's calling me going, where are you? I'm like, dude, I'm doing a podcast. I'm eating hamburgers. I am not rolling.
Hamburgers. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll probably go to the gym. I'll probably lift a very traditional meathead lift, which would be, you know, I'm going to do squats. Maybe I'll do deadlifts, and then I'll do some sort of cable flies, arms, a lot of pulling. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just progressive overload, you know, old school. Yeah.
And with your weight, because you're a big dude, what is, I don't know, like, because obviously I would imagine you probably had to work your tail off to get up to a decent size.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you're still maintaining that same workload as now as you're shifting to more and more jiu-jitsu. What's your weight right now, and what's the heaviest you've ever been?
I got a scale right there. I think I'm 248.
Okay.
The heaviest I've ever been was 256. Now that was pretty recently. I hit it in college when I was fat. I was just trying to eat as much as I could and become a heavyweight. But 256. Yeah. So the my lifting is taking a backseat to like my technique or my jiu-jitsu, because like you're saying, when you're drilling and you're picking people up and you're rolling around, like you're lifting human bodies. It's a different feel. But I do think it's good to maintain at least twice a week. You can hit it after practice. I hit it before. Today will be its own thing. It'll be delightful. Yeah. So 256. I did a lot of heavy compound lifts to get to that. I did like 6 months before ADCC TJ when I started jiu-jitsu. Being made fun of by my friends for being out of shape. I got a chip on my shoulder. I started lifting super heavy for 6 months before starting jiu-jitsu. And I did like a powerlifting program of, crazy squats, crazy deadlifts. I wanted to have like all the big maxes. So that helped. And now I feel like I've maintained that base.
Yeah. And then what do you think about the idea of like functional lifting? Because so for me, I have my opinions. I still mostly meat. I guess people would consider it meathead lifting, right? I'm doing your basic traditional exercises to strengthen my body from head to toe.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, when you look online, there's so much like, it's like someone comes up with some different, very novel exercise, and then they just slap functional on it. And, you know, I've always I remember one time I got a comment from someone. I was doing I think I was doing like squats and something. They're like, Chewy, why don't you do functional lifting? And I'm like, what's not functional about taking a squat? Like if I poop on the toilet, I got to squat down there to get it, right? If I've got to pick my kid up off the ground, I'm going to have to bend down and lift him up off the ground. So what are your thoughts on functional lifting?
I think it's very fun to make fun of. We had a training partner and friend here in San Diego who's now in medical school, but he'd be going, "Oh, functional patterns and this and that." I go, "Scott, God, please shut up. Like, just go pick up some weight and move it from point A to point B, whatever that could be. Do it. Try to hit at least 6, aim for 8. You know, what are we doing? Pick up weight." So that's my take on functional training. It's fun to make fun of. I'm glad it's great. Do it. Do a complex movement with weight. That's fine. Just don't ramble on about it. Just be a meathead. I don't know why we have to make everything complicated. You know, I'm glad someone is looking at it and, you know, trying to dissect. But again, you look at like old school Russian weightlifting, just like they're picking things up, putting it down, you know. They're kind of the founders of that, strength conditioning program that we probably all follow today.
Well, I think it kind of reminds me of like diet, right? Like when you think of people with diet, like diet really isn't all that complicated. But there's like a million different diets, you know, and you'll tell someone, "Oh man, it's not your fault. It's that you have this gut bacteria or whatever," or "No, it's not your fault. It's carbs," or "It's not your fault." And so there's like a million different diets. And, you know, I guess if you stick to any of them, you could lose some weight or you could, you know, look better. But, you know, really it comes down to like, are you just eating too many damn calories and eating too much food, and you don't need to.
You follow common sense. Yeah. But by the way, if I ever come up with like a strength conditioning program or diet and something, and I name it something silly and know how to monetize it, I will completely walk back everything I've just said. Just so we're clear.
The Daube diet.
Yeah. I will sell out in 2 seconds. Just want to lay that out there.
I think some of it, like as far as the diet goes, just like eating like whole foods consistently, knowing your portions and knowing what you're, I mean, that's really, it's like people get so in trouble with snacking or something. Like you just start eating random stuff and then you don't realize how many calories you're just putting in your body, and like, oh, I'm just gonna go burn it off. Like you can't just burn off like 100 calories that quick. Like it takes some effort, that stuff takes effort.
Well, that's like dudes would have like the Fitbit on when they'd go to the gym and train, and it would tell them they burned like 1,200 calories. I'm like, bro, you did not burn 1,200 calories. Like, no way that you burned that many calories. Like, you burn like your workouts, like, this. Most of your calories are burned just living. There's like a small fraction of it actually comes from exercise, and it's not as great as you think.
I totally make fun of people for this, but I think it's a good idea. Is low heart rate, high heart rate?
Oh, sure.
I like that. Like if you're flowing and you say a low heart rate, there's legit science to that. You can get more reps in. You're not like overusing your nervous system. And
right.
We've all had that. Like after a tournament, you're like, I can't, like things like my body doesn't work. My nervous system is shot. Because
you were sitting in the red line for the entire time.
Yeah. And so I do like that concept. Now, again, you'll see me in clips making fun of PJ. Like, oh, we doing low heart rate today, American style, And my Brazilian friends like to make fun of it, and so do I. It's very fun, make fun of. But I 100% agree with it. It is like a great way to train. I do agree with it.
No, because I started like looking up some of that stuff, and so during certain periods of training, I'll wear a heart rate monitor, and I'll keep track of where I'm at. And if I start getting into a range where I don't want to be at in that particular training session, then I'll start to back off. Or if I want to like get to a certain intensity, like I need to get higher, well, then I know that I need to push it a little bit more. And it can be helpful. And even being able to monitor sometimes like, if I can see typically how fast it's coming down, how fast it's going up. And then if it starts to slow down and all of a sudden I'm getting stuck and it's not coming back down as fast as it needs to, then that gives me some ideas as to where I'm at and how hard I push myself. And also it allows me to sort of modulate the training where like I can undulate it. I can have hard. It's like, when you do like a powerlifting style training, like a lot of times you'd have these harder days and lighter days, whatever. You sort of do this so you don't tax your nervous system too much. It's the same thing. It's like basically instead of going off of feel, you can say, well, I have some data to help back up, which usually you can feel it already, but it gives you some data to back it up and go off of.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. I think it's great. It's funny when people do that. Like Janatis was doing that the other day. He's like, I'm going to go light today. My heart, I'm not like, it's not coming down as quick as it should. And then I look over and he's just going to war. I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
That's Jiu-Jitsu people. That's Jiu-Jitsu people. Go easy today.
Go have a light roll.
Go light, dude. Yeah, that heart rate, like that recovery, like you can see how long it takes, after you get your heart rate up, your heart rate recovery. If it's like starting to, you're not recovering quickly, or like Chewy mentioned, it's not getting down to that resting rate that you wanted at, then you're probably, you might be, it's kind of like, you're driving a car down the expressway, right? And like you get the sweet spot and you're getting the most gas mileage. Like, oh yeah, I'm getting the most gas mileage. You go a little slower or go a little too fast, and you're not as efficient. So you're kind of find your sweet spot for that efficiency, which you can work in that little zone, man. If you can stay in there, you can just cruise and keep a nice, good pace.
Yeah. I was going to ask about overtraining. I feel like
overtraining.
Well, so many people overtrain.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
100%. Like I know we shouldn't, like, I feel like the average person has never overtrained in their life. But when it comes to like high level athletes who are trying to win an ADCC title, I feel like a lot of them overtrained. And I see it.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I'll try and mention this to people and they're like, dude, no. I'm like, you have so many world titles and you overtrain for all of them. Maybe like, I don't know. There might be something to having an insane mentality like that. Like, again, I think of Ronaldo and Janata as two people who they will be on the mat for like 6 hours. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like yesterday, Ronaldo 7 a.m. Optos, 12 o'clock, J-Flow, went and trained again live at 6 o'clock. I'm like, you did 3 sessions with live rounds in one day, and he's doing it again today. I'm like, but he has a world title, and he kills at every session. So I'm like, maybe I'm shut up, and maybe I'm just soft, I don't know.
Well, I think sometimes a couple things happens, right? Like, one, when a guy gets really good at jiu-jitsu, they tend to be able to like they can kind of like become very efficient at their movements, and they can sometimes control things to some degree.
Yeah.
But you start to see it a lot of times at camps. I remember seeing it like MMA camps, jiu-jitsu training camps, and guys would always get sick like during their training camp, you know, and because they're like a lot of times they're trying to get their weight down a little bit, and then they're trying to increase the intensity of training. So you have less food to fuel the body, and you're pushing yourself even harder. And so you're having this like inverse relationship. And so all of a sudden their sleep starts getting really bad. They get lethargic, and but they have the willpower. And so they'll push through it, and eventually they end up getting sicker. Sometimes they'll get injured. You know, if you just like sometimes maybe take a little bit of a back off a little bit, you can come back and get more out of your training session. It's like doing sprints, right? Like you could do like a really half-ass sprint if you don't give yourself enough time to rest. But if you just give yourself a little bit more time to rest, you can get way more from the sprint, because you have the amount of recovery needed. Or even like lifting weights. If you're doing some heavy lifting, right? Like you need rest periods. So you need a longer rest period. Whereas like, in bodybuilding, it's a short rest period, but the weight comes down considerably, right? So.
All right, I got a couple. I don't want to offend anyone. Let's not offend anyone here. And you have a lot of training partners. Who's one? He's like, what's he gonna ask? Nothing crazy.
I'll offend all.
No, who's one of your favorite training partners? Like, who's maybe somebody that is really like maybe a fun role, or someone challenging, or just anything. What's like, and what makes them like a really good training partner for you?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've seen who I train. I'm so lucky to train with who I train with. So I get to trade with like the Atos guys, Legion guys, 10th Planet guys, like everyone in San Diego. Thank goodness. I'm really grateful for that. But now I get to talk trash. Keenan's one of my favorite training partners. We just go to war. Ronaldo is the most frustrating because he doesn't slow down.
He's fast.
He knows how to wrestle. Like, he's been working with us wrestling now. And I'm like, dude, I don't have good options now anywhere. Like, I used to be able to manage you on the feet. Now you're pulling on my head. I can't get my hands on you, and you're blast doubling me. I'm like, this is a nightmare. So he's like I like drilling with Ronaldo. I do not like live rounds with Ronaldo. My coach, Kevin Beerbrick, has such a style that is, no one else really has it. And you've seen him, Chewy, right, Kevin? He is like flexible, but he's also 215, and he can like throw his legs behind his head.
Those dudes they're the worst to deal with, because it's like they're such an anomaly. There's just so few of them to like. It's hard to ever learn how to deal with them, because there's just so few people that have that sort of situation. John Hansen's another guy where like big flexible dude, and like, again, a lot of things that work on normal people, normal big guys, don't work on them because of the flexibility issues.
Yeah. You're like, 5 people on the planet that move like that. Janatas is a great drilling partner. I've been working a lot with him. He coaches me up a lot. And then Kynan's got to be the worst, dude. His clubs, oh my God, like a Kynan day. I canceled my plans for this today. I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to move after this. And then he gets on top, and I have never felt that type of pressure where I'm like, oh, you're taking inch by inch. You're not letting me get anything back. And I'm like having a panic attack with you on top of me. I don't know where the weight comes from. It doesn't make sense. And then he's like super nice after and goes, oh, let me show you what. Oh my God, dude. Like, I hate you and love you, but
that's phenomenal. His ADCC performance was just, I mean, crazy.
Well, and he's good. He's good from every position.
He's good. He's just
so every position. He's good.
He's just so good and just so dominant. Like, I watched him. I mean, like, he won his division and won the, open, and it's like, dude, he just looks so good the whole time.
He made it look easy, and it wasn't like,
no,
but he made it look easy. Like, it looks like he's not trying passing the guard the way he does. No one passes a guard like that. God, that guy is so good.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's impressive. So you get a lot of good looks, a lot of good, tough rounds. All right, you got a favorite submission you like to do? Could be a big man submission, or it could be just something maybe unconventional for a big guy. What's something you love doing, or what's maybe your favorite one? What's something that, like, if you hit in practice, you're just laughing about?
I just hit it for the first time ever 2 days ago, so I'm gonna eventually be just a leg locker. I 100% will end.
That sounds terrifying.
And leg locking people.
Big giant man ripping legs off. It sounds great.
I'm gonna figure it out. I don't have quite the build, but I'm gonna, if Paul Harris, remember that MMA
I was going to
guy?
say Paul Harris could do it. I mean, you're a big guy. You could do it.
That's my goal. I want to be that guy. So I hit, Kevin had showed me it. I don't know if you know, I don't want to give away secrets here. You know, some few jiu-jitsu secrets left, but he doesn't hit a heel hook like wrapping up around the wrist. Like he hits heel hooks like with his face.
Okay.
Like catching it with the chin. I guess
Sure.
Mikey lock it, something like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
chest and like hold toes.
Yep.
And I finally hit like an inside heel hook the other day on someone who I was just playing 50-50 with. And I was like, oh, that felt so good to hit it from there. Boom, hipped in. That was my favorite, hands down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, big man. You like do like any of the smother chokes, any of those things?
No, I don't have a good smother choke. I'm still like working on north-south and maintaining top control. I'm getting there, but I'm like really rudimentary. Like I can take people down, pass a guard.
Probably get Kimuras and stuff, huh?
I get Kimuras, but there's a funny clip I have of me doing one backwards and everyone's yelling.
That's white belt stuff.
Right? Yeah. Well, like a couple months ago.
Well, you're 20 months
remedial
in.
class.
With Janatas and Kevin in my corner going, you're doing it backwards. And I'm arguing. I'm going, no, I'm not. And then I look down and I'm like, oh, whoops. And so, yeah, I like to hit Kimuras, but I like a good straight arm bar at a kind of angle up towards the head and not down towards the feet. Yeah.
Nice,
I'm working on some stuff.
Yeah, you only been in it like what you said, 19 months, man. You're still just so fresh. I mean, it still have so much to learn. I mean, even with the amount of grappling experience you have, you took this kind of really extended break and then you kind of just hop back into it. So it's just like still you're trying to grease the wheels a little bit and figuring out this whole thing. And you know, let me ask you this about all the wrestlers in jiu-jitsu. How do you like, is that exciting to you? Like, what do you see as far as you're one of the wrestlers that kind of got into jiu-jitsu? So what do you see like jiu-jitsu progressing to? If you have to kind of use a crystal ball and look at it, where do you see jiu-jitsu moving to?
Yeah. First of all, I am so happy the wrestlers are moving over. Just giving athletes a different opportunity to make a living or to do something different. Wrestling can be a grind. It's usually attached to a school. You get a degree out of it. But again, how many wrestlers are behind Jordan Burroughs that could be excelling at jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They didn't make the Olympic team, but there's so many. And I'm really happy they're going to have a shot. And I want to like make it more out there and put it out there more. They're going to have a shot to like compete at a high level. Yeah. Even if they miss that window, again, wrestling, it happens from this 4-year window, gone. And so jiu-jitsu, you can start whenever you want. I hope there's a wrestler listening to this right now that will go down to the jiu-jitsu gym and start rolling because you have a shot to make a career out of it at any point in your life. So I am ecstatic that wrestlers are doing it. I think more are coming. And I think crystal ball, man, if American wrestlers really start embracing jiu-jitsu, I think jiu-jitsu will be mainstream within like 3 years. I'm hearing whispers about big companies looking at maybe starting a league. Maybe not this year, maybe in a year or so after, maybe in the shape of like, there's like 8 sides to it. You know what I'm saying?
One of my buddies is possibly associated with like that particular league.
Yes.
Very cool.
Really hope that happens. Yeah, man. That would be cool, especially if they do it with the angled walls that look like a pit as well. That would be cool. So I think jiu-jitsu will be mainstream in like 2 to 3 years.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think it's the way it's going. I mean, it's the way it's going. Like if there's better athletes, there's more money. That you know, look at the CJI was huge. You know, I mean, it was a fun event. Chew and I stopped in on day one. We got to check it out live. It was a very cool event. ADCC is still, ADCC. It's still, one of the. You have all these opens that people come and the kids like Chewy had coached at we were at the ADCC. It was the kids worlds. Chewy, is that what it was? Mm-hmm. And I mean, he said I kind of watched some highlights, but I mean that you've got such an event now. You got some of these kids that are starting from like such a young age and they're extremely high level, and they have sponsors and this and that. And I mean, you got look at the Rotolo brothers, right? I mean, they're kind of grew up with jiu-jitsu. They're probably that first generation that started as kids, and now look what they are. Look how much money they've made too, and they're such high level. It's going to be one of those sports that kids now start like kind of like wrestling is, right? Wrestling, you start as a young, 4, 5, 6-year-old, whatever it is, and you can like work your way up through the ranks. And it's the same way, man. I think it's just the way it's going to be. And it wasn't like that when I started. I'm sure it wasn't like Chewy started. Like, you didn't have these kids starting at 6 years old and then just hitting crazy submissions. So I think it's just blown up. I hope it stays true to being still this, that it's competitive and it's I don't know, it's definitely changed, but I mean, I think it's just going to grow. It's just going to grow.
Yeah. ADCC CGI was crazy. I feel like, I was just talking to Mo at the last ADCC Open here in San Diego, and I feel like that guy does it. He's very like fun to like villainize, especially because Craig is so funny. But like that dude deserves a lot of credit for everything he's done. Like, did he approach things in a different way? Sure, 100%. But he that dude's passionate, and he put on these opens are great.
Yeah, the opens are good.
They're good.
If he does nationals too, like a Brazil nationals or a US nationals, starts like, dude, he needs more credit. I'm like a big Mo fan. I really like that guy.
Yeah, like you said, I think because of the way things went down when Craig was doing his stuff, I think that it really put him in a bad light. But again, at the same time, it's like, people will forget, as people often do. 2 weeks later, there's always something new, whatever. And I think I was talking to Brandon McGaffron about this, and I think you're going to have something where, the ADCC will be kind of like this prestigious thing that people do. Maybe you could consider it then there's one that's the entertainment side. So the CJI might be the entertainment side, and the ADCC might be like the Olympic side, right? Like something that's very prestigious. People want to do it, but at the same time, there's always room for the entertainment side as well. So I think that there's plenty of room for both,
for sure.
And so I hope that they both continue to grow and expand. So I think it's good.
And Mo handled all of that really well. Like, hat goes off to him. Like, that dude handled that as well as you could have. And I think he listens too. I think he'll change some things up. He already started, higher pay and more stuff, and was like acknowledging things. I'm pretty excited for ADCC, the direction.
Yeah, it'd be very cool. What do you have going on? If people want to train with you, as far as your gym goes, I don't know if that's open yet, but when it will be, where can people find out more about it and learn more about you and kind of maybe train with you if they want?
So right now I'm in the amazing process of permitting with the city, which is so delightful.
In California. Good luck with that.
It's
so fun. So
they might be listening. Be careful. Careful what you say, right? California.
They're great. I'm happy with everyone down there at the city. It will be, I'm aiming for the next 3 months. It'll be open. There's not a lot of build out. We have the building. It's in Poway. It's going to be called American Strength and Combat, 12316 Oaknell Road. I'm going to either have 1,000 or maybe 1,400 square foot mat with showers. I'm going to be putting in a pit wall with some bags, and it's going to be just wrestling and meathead lifting, actually. So, American Strength and Combat in Poway. We're so excited for that. And it'll be great. My gym is 10th Planet Poway, so I'm going to be right down the road. We're going to be coexisting and supporting one another. Nice. I'm really happy to have something that can like support jiu-jitsu like the way I do, which is I can help coach the fundamentals of wrestling and work with my training partners and friends. So I'm happy to have like a gym that just kind of mirrors that, not doing something I don't know how to do. So I'm really excited for that.
Very cool.
And coming up is just, I feel like we're in a bit of a lag here. Maybe competition wise, I'll try and pick a fight with someone online, get like a super fight, call out Pat Downey or something. But it's gonna be that. And then trials. I saw Brandon got promoted to brown belt. I'm not looking forward to seeing him. I hope I get my brown belt before No Gi World. So
right.
My big goal this year.
People can stop griping at me that he's a sandbagger.
They're still gonna say it, Chewy. They're still gonna say it. Even in brown belt, they're gonna say he's a sandbagger.
Yeah, people realize like there's literally only one way to get promoted through the IBJJF, which is you either win worlds or you wait. So all the people that get Pat Downey, okay, just read the rule book. He literally has to compete at blue belt.
Right. He has to go through this process, and he has to have so many years at the belt and stuff like that. So it's what it is.
Yeah. Sandbagging. It's crazy.
Here's a question for you from me. This is my last one. And this is something because I remember like when we spoke briefly, you kind of lit up when you were talking about your kids. So I'm newer to this as being a dad. You've got a little bit more time in than me, and I like talking to guys about it. Obviously, probably in innumerable ways it's changed, but how has being a dad like changed you? Like for the better? How is it like? How has it changed you in some way? Obviously, you don't have to have the right way of saying this because it's a big question. But I think for all of us, if you got a kid, like it has a crazy impact on your life. How has it changed you?
Yeah, it has made me like. So I have two now, and so I felt this a second time. And my like capacity to love, which is so cheesy. God, as soon as that comes out of my mouth, like my capacity to like care and love has exponentially grown.
Okay.
Like, my kid, I did not know could love a human being as much as I love my kids. I'm sure you feel like that. Like I didn't know I could love something that much. And then I like that has somehow like reverberated or carried over to my friendships. I'm like, I like love. Like when I'm friends with people, I like care much more. Where I feel before kids, I was like maybe slightly selfish or something.
Yeah.
Like that is the biggest impact. My capacity to love and care about people has grown. Okay. And then the second one, I was like, how could I love any child as much as I love my daughter? And then and I was told by my parents, they're like, oh, you just love more. And I'm like, I already love so much. I'm like, your heart gets bigger. I'm like, oh, completely true. Completely true. So that's been like life is actually better with them.
I can see that. Yeah.
I look at her and I try not to swear. I'm like, you have no idea how much I love you. And she's like, it's like that. It's just the best.
Yeah. I told my wife something like I was telling her because like one day like I was noticing that like we were at the beach with like the little one. He's seeing the beach for the first time and we're sitting there and his hand is gripping my finger and he's just in amazement of like the waves coming in and he's like looking up at me and I was like trying to I was like getting a little like watery eyed. I'm like, fuck. I was like, what? I was like, what's going on? And it's like I was telling her, it's like this. It's like all of a sudden I thought about like the Grinch. Remember, it's like when his like heart got bigger and it got softer. I was like, I feel like I'm the Grinch. This little guy like made my heart bigger.
Yes. Yeah, you seen it.
I cry a lot more. I would say I cry like it's so much easier to like that. Like you kind of I'm a man. I'm hardened. I don't cry. And I'm like, dude, I'll just watch like a very like emotional commercial and I'll be like, oh, don't look at me.
How many kids have you, Eugene?
I have two. I have my son is 9, my daughter's 7. So yeah, amazing. I've got 2 and they're awesome little people. And yeah, man, you just love more. You love more and you it's some stuff just doesn't matter as much. Some of the shit you used to worry about just doesn't really impact you as much. So if it doesn't regard your kids, because I mean it just kind of puts things in perspective too, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I care less about things that don't matter and care more about things that do.
Yeah. Very cool. That's a great way to end it. Yeah, that's a great way to end it. So you're in San Diego. If people want to train with you, though, San Diego, it's 10th Planet.
Poway is my home gym, but I'm also Legion with Justin Flores is a great.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's my name. It's Ian Daube. So IANDAUBE. And then the gym will be American Strength and Combat.
Awesome.
Just typed out. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I'm all over San Diego. You see me training with everybody down here.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's good. That's how you get better. All right. Train with the best dudes.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. Well, cool. Thank you for your time, man. Appreciate you hanging out with us. And Chew, you got anything?
No, man. Appreciate you for being on. It was fun chatting with you. And I'm sure we'll cross paths again into competition sometime soon.
100%. Eugene, Chewy, thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck with the gym, bro.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Yeah. All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully you got something from it. Again, Ian's a super nice dude. So again, if we want to see what's going on with him, check him out on Instagram. He's usually got some funny videos going on of him. You can kind of gather that he's a humorous dude, and him like talking trash and goofing off with his training partners. But again, thank you guys for being here, and thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Grapple Science, again, I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. They have a new supplement called Cognition. If you've not tried it, it is to help you improve your focus and have a bit more energy for training without blasting you full of stimulants. And so if you want to check it out, it's at their website, grapplescience.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. Charles Web, they have a ton of different supplements, everything from CBD to other cannabinoids like CBN, which is really useful for sleep, which I really like. But there's a lot of other supplements that they're getting into now that include everything from mushrooms like reishi and lion's mane to other supplements such as ashwagandha root and things like that are mixed together with the supplements that they've been carrying for a long time. So they have a lot of new stuff on the line. So if you have used Charlotte's Web before in the past, or maybe you haven't, used it in a while, check out their new line of stuff. They've got a lot of good stuff that I've tried that I really like, and it's at their website at charlottesweb.com. And if you want to save 30% off the order, the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off. Also, thanks to our buddy at Epic Roll. Roll BJJ.com is the website. They've been a long-time supporter of the podcast. If you want to get some new gear, training gear, gis, rash guard shorts, hoodies, joggers, anything, fanny packs, anything related to jiu-jitsu, EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. Chewjitsu20 is the promo code to save 20% on the order. If you guys want to become a member of our Patreon, get a bunch of added perks, and also support the podcast that you're listening to for a very inexpensive price, like less than probably what you spend on like random frivolous coffee and everything else, right? Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And when you go on there, you'll see the membership options, and then you can join up at whatever price you'd like to there that's available to you. And then you'll get access to the perks, and you help support the podcast that's continuing to go. And we appreciate the heck out of you. Also, if you guys want to get my ebook called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which is designed to help you add more focus to your training so that you can improve faster, and then you also get my daily email, then check it out at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. And when you join up, you will get both of those completely free. And then if you like the email, you can become one of the many thousands of people that read it every morning and every day, or you can unsubscribe at any time. And so, guys, with that said, thank you for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast with Ian. We'll talk to you next week.